I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. You got the joke.
See you later.
No, we'll see you later. Thank you, Tim, for having me here today. We've been good friends for a long time. I do a lot of outreach here in the Fayetteville area. I live in Wilmington, but I manage everything, pretty much everything east of I-95 to the water, Virginia to South Carolina. So I've got a pretty big area that I serve. And I'm very honored to be a public servant in terms of helping so many small businesses that have so many needs today, particularly in this very difficult environment as far as access to capital, contracting, which Rick mentioned, which I'll kind of get into a little bit. Need to move this slide ahead. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to stick to this slide because I have things on here which are 2- and 3-hour classes that I teach. So in 6 minutes, there's not a lot of time I can really get any kind of depth as far as this process here. So, but first, I'm simply going to start with the concept of the SBA. Who's heard of the SBA as a government agency? Okay, everybody passes the test. Okay, it began in 1953. It began as a contracting agency, actually, because we were coming out of a very difficult war, which is the Korean War, where we had basically reduced our military footprint to the point where a lot of those soldiers went to fight that battle were actually getting boot camp training on the battleship on the way to the theater. Okay? And secondly, that was the first real process where we had the process of small businesses and recession after the World War II having to struggle a little bit. So we created the SBA as a contracting agency and also provide service in terms of lending, counseling, resource platforms. So obviously in the last 60 plus years, our military industrial complex has been allowed us to become the economic superpower, one of the greatest in the history of the world. And also our economic process providing small business lending and growth has also allowed us to become an economic superpower as well. So, but we're faced with a number of challenges today. So what we see as far as SBA is, we're looking at, for the first time since the Great Depression, we're actually seeing more small business deaths than small business births. So when I started looking at the process of SBA and how we can better serve our small business community to create jobs and opportunities, it really starts in terms of looking as far as small business training, mentoring, and counseling. We are blessed here in Fayetteville to have a number of SBA resource providers that provide direct service that is free and confidential to the small business community. Locally here, the Small Business Technology and Development Centers, the Service Corps Retired Executives, or SCORE. There's also the Veterans Business Outreach Center, and there's the Women's Business Centers here locally known as SEED. And some of you may have seen Ray Sean Manuel come in and put on a presentation back a couple weeks ago. There's 4 major resource providers here in the area, not including the service that Tamara and her group provide as a partner with the SBA in terms of small business resource planning and counseling. We see the fact that with this many small business deaths, there's other issues as far as capital I'll discuss here, but bottom line is we're not seeing the kind of strategic development for these small businesses to become more successful and continue to grow. The shocking thing about America in terms of small business community is that between 80 and 90% of small businesses will fail within 5 years. I'm here to tell you it does not have to be that way. Okay? But ultimately, the process of starting the business and growing a business gets into a vetting process. And we at the SBA, which we're basically an alternative lender to in some capacity, those folks who take the time to go through the proper vetting process, which includes having a business plan, proper research, having decent credit, not great, but decent credit, going through the ABCs as far as having a key software program called Profit Sense, and taking on capital and assuming incentive and risk within it. Those folks who do that will pay off an SBA loan over 90% of the time between 7 and 10 years. So we take a high rate of failure of 90% in small business over 5 years and turn it into a success story through that vetting process. So how many of you are actually in small business currently? Okay, over half. So we take that process and require it through the vetting process and end up having enormous success through it. So there is no shortcut at all if I'm going to say anything about what I see for SBA and small business. It takes hard work, it takes guts, it takes perseverance, it takes incentive, it takes dedication, working long hours, and ultimately being the last one paid if you're paid at all. Okay? So, but looking in terms of talking about as far as direct lending. Oops. We are a guarantor of the lending process. We do not make direct loans other than for natural disasters, which we won't get into today particularly. But for capital purposes here, the banking system, which is still the strongest in the world, provides the services for us. So we rely upon them to do a lot of the vetting process for us. The bank, to understand this, he who has the gold always rules. The bank may make a decision to go with you in terms of providing a direct loan, which if that's the case, they will do that. If they cannot provide a direct loan to you through the banking system, their banking process, or underwriting process, then they can provide the SBA guarantee through the SBA on your behalf. And that is really protection for the bank. It's similar to like an insurance premium that they pay a fee for to provide that service. But the key behind it is there's a 75 to 85% guarantee that the SBA provides as taxpayer money that is used to support that lending process. So that ultimately means you have a lesser down payment requirement of between 15 and 25% for equity into the deal. So we've had a great success over time in terms of providing opportunities for capital, but also have been through a major financial crisis, and we've seen, because of all the different things that came out of that, a lot of banks have pulled back. So we're hoping that through the process of having stronger banking relationships whereby they are going to minimize more of the risk moving forward, we can make more SBA lending in terms of that process for small businesses. This process, like I said, it is not a case of saying it's a situation where the customer has less than stellar credit, has less than other requirements that the bank simply wouldn't touch otherwise. It has to be a good deal. We just make it better with the SBA guarantee. Okay? As far as on talking about government contracting, since that was really the backbone of our initial relationship when we first began this as an agency, we have two main programs, the 8A or 8 Alpha phonetically and Hub Zone programs. These are socio-economic programs. And I'll give you a couple of ideas to consider as far as when we look at government contracting, because Rick had made a point he has not been very successful as his company at that. And I see wildly successful stories out there throughout the state. We had a guy who was an Argentine foreign national that got his citizenship when he was in the Marines, satellite communications officer. So he had a chance to develop a lot of equity in terms of relationships, was in the 8A program for about 3 to 4 years, and had a chance to compete for a satellite comm contract against Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, Raytheon, Electronic Data Systems, some of the biggest in the world. He got that contract for $19 billion, okay? And he has since used that to go in a number of other defense industry-related types of contracting opportunities. And he'll be the first to tell you, he never would have seen an opportunity for that contract had he not had the chance to be in the 8A program. I have another lady who was a Small Business Person of the Year, and she goes through a fantastic story. I've been listened to her several times, where she basically had made the decision on a Sunday evening to start closing down the business on the following Monday because her construction business had not been successful in terms of generating business during a very difficult time in 2008, 2009, and 2010. Well, Monday morning rolls around, and guess what? She gets a contract to develop a war set, to construct a war set down in, I believe, Fort Bliss, Texas. She's since gone on to do another dozen of them around the country and the world, utilizing the 8A program as a woman-owned small business. We have a guy here locally who finished up his career at Fort Bragg, and he had done a lot of work as far as an enlisting or enlisted guy in terms of the Base Reduction and Closure Act process, or BRAC. He starts his own company. He's 9 years to the 8A program and graduates. He was averaging nearly $10 million a year providing BRAC consulting out of a small 4-person shop here in Fayetteville. And lastly, I see a person down in Jacksonville. She's a woman-owned small business, Hispanic-owned small business in construction, and she's since gone into trucking. She's been in the 8A program, and she's been in the Hub Zone program, which is the geographic area of low income. She averages some years as much as $60 million in terms of construction revenue, and she has about 45 plus employees, all through the process of a relationship with the 8A Hub Zone programs. And she's also done joint venture work, and she's also done work in terms of a mentor protege program we helped her assist, where they provided capital and other resources. So I see fantastic success in terms of what the 8A and Hub Zone program can do for you. As far as a counselor, locally here under the SBTDC, we have something called a PTAC, a Procurement Technical Assistance Coordinator. What a PTAC does is sits down with you as a company, looks at your marketing requirements in terms and your capacity, and helps you build a plan through research to find ways to take advantage of your skills and services in the company and try to compete for government contracts. Okay? It takes work. I mean, this is the government, so we make sure everything is done in at least quadruplicate, right? So, but having a PTAC on your side, which we have hundreds around the country, 6 here in North Carolina, They know the research tools to cut through some of the hassle that you may encounter, including how to get on to the web and be able to register your small business for opportunities. So in 6 minutes, I can't tell you enough what I think the SBA can do for you, but it's tremendous. And my job is basically as a information point person, point man, to get you in the right direction, at the right place, at the right time, with all the resources I knew throughout this area, all the small colleges, the chambers of commerce, economic developers. I mean, that is my day job. So I'm here to help you any way I possibly can. For you small businesses that we've not had a chance to meet, then to me, my goal is let's be better partners and better friends and find ways to work for you specifically to help you start your business, grow your business, and develop it for a profit. Ultimately, the exit strategy where you can sell it for a profit. It's kind of what I do. So that's my first 6 minutes probably.
Questions?
Questions? Yes, sir.
The set-asides for 8A, hub zone, and all that tend to seem to, and pardon the editorial comment, pick winners and losers. And a lot of small businesses...
How do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of small businesses don't qualify for 8A or hub zone. We're just out there trying to make a living. And it's either seems to go to the big guys or the set-asides for those. We're all disadvantaged because we're small business.
Okay, you said it all goes to the big guys. Again, that's the contracting process, which is not what 8A does. We have a contracting program called 8A, called Hub Zone and 8A, which is specific for small business, not for big guys. Okay, so that's the first thing. It's only for small business. Now, because
subsets of small business.
I'm sorry?
Subsets of small business. I may be wrong.
What do you mean by the subsets of small business? It's small business.
Woman-owned, veteran. There's several categories, of course.
That's correct.
Well, if you don't fit in one of those categories, you're just a small business trying to make it.
We still have the fact that as under our set-asides, 7 or 8% are still available just for small business.
And they define small businesses under 500 employees?
That's correct. No, in some cases under 1,500 employees. But we'll say 500, but still.
How many 500 employee companies do we have in Fayetteville?
I think that's beside the point. The point is the contracting process allows you to entertain opportunities like I mentioned before. A very small company won a $19 billion contract against McDonnell Douglas, Raytheon, all these big companies. So to me, the job of a small business is to learn the contracting process and build the kind of proposal opportunities they're looking for. There are requirements and incentive set-asides that must be met. Now, consider this. Under the 8A program, anything, or the HOSA program, anything over $150,000 must first be given visibility into our programs. That's required by law, okay? And that's a drop in the ocean for most of socio-economic programs and contracting. So to me, it's a case of taking advantage of using the PTAC that's available here locally, or even one of 6 in the area that can assist you by research to find how to put your NAICS codes to work in a successful process. And if it's something where you can't find something that works for you here locally, if you're in the 80 program, you can also take a look at having a bona fide office someplace in the country that research shows where you have a higher likelihood of success in the contracting program, okay? We're not picking the losers. We're providing, I think, opportunities for people to be very successful if they follow the contracting program. It's always up to the contracting officer what they decide to do. That's not the 8A's piece. We have internally 2 full-time business development specialists. Their full-time job is to try to find those contracts, get them in the program, and compete and be successful in the program following the rule of 2.
What are the basic requirements to qualify for 8A?
2 years in business, okay, is the first thing. We want to make sure you have capacity and capability. So you got to register as far as being through sam.gov. That's also required. And then the SBA will have an internal process. They'll send you as far as, it's a government application thing. But the biggest thing is to show you've got capacity and capability to function in the program. You don't have to have any actual contracting experience when you come into the program, but you have to show you have the capacity and the capability to do so.
Is there a cost to do that?
There is no cost. Yes, sir. Sorry. First, whoever.
I think the behind goes first.
All right.
You said PTAC counselors. Who are those and how can we get in contact?
Locally here at the Small Business Technology and Development Center, I can get with you offline as far as giving the phone number. You can also go to a-ptac.org, a-ptac.org, and find a locator here in the state of North Carolina, because there are 6 in the state that provide direct service. The guy here locally has about 30 years in federal contracting. He's been a big go-to guy for me. There's a very aggressive young lady down in both in Raleigh and down in Greenville I work with a lot too. So we have some great talent here on the PTAC side to help you figure out how to market your business, and research those existing or the previously let contracts that we have a full research relationship for historically for every contract let here in North Carolina. Young lady?
Does the SBA have any priorities up and coming for either grant funding or revolving loan funds for businesses that would be targeted towards the zero waste goals for the military?
The what again?
Zero waste goals for the military?
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Upcoming, as far as grants, first of all, any grants that are done are like at the very strategic high level for government. The programs I work with are not grant-related programs, so they're all about small business lending at very affordable and reasonable lending rates, currently about 6%. So the larger types of programs, which for grants that are government-related, is something we'd have to get you to another resource tech out of Chapel Hill who can help discuss some of those for you. We do have those things in place, but believe me, they're government-wide applications primarily. Okay. Yes, sir?
Okay, small business loan. Now, are you guaranteeing the loan for the business, or are you guaranteeing the loan for a human? I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay, so are you checking the credit of the business, or are you checking the credit of the person?
Okay, thanks. Every small business loan has a personal guarantee component. Okay, so we're always looking at the individual's credit in order to make that determination.
Okay, all right. So I've got a student, and the student goes through college, and he's got student loans. And he's been in business for a couple of years, and things have been slow, and maybe he's not, doing the best he can with his stud loans. Would that wind up counting against him?
You could. Yes. Bottom line is the fact that an SBA relationship is different than one with a bank, okay? Because we do take advantage of the taxpayer guarantee to make sure it's done. So we don't require stellar credit. But if you got delinquency issues or things that are impactful to the score, that's how it is. So to me...
Well, it's the same way with the VA. If I want to qualify for a VA home loan, they got two primary requirements that they'll never let go of. I got to have 1 year of good credit, and I got to have 1 year on the job. If I don't have those two things, VA doesn't underwrite the loan.
But we have a scoring model which is different than what most banks use, and is far more lenient than what you're going to find at a bank that uses a FICO score process. So banks only want the best possible customers. They want businesses that have been in business at least 2 years and have 100% collateral. The SBA cuts its teeth on those businesses of less than 2 years and startups that have decent credit, not stellar but decent, and also those who have less than 100% collateral. So we provide that way to go ahead, that gateway to get capital, working capital to start business and or even help purchase commercial real estate through our process. So because we take an educated guess that the vetting process is there. If you complete the vetting process, you've got an excellent opportunity to go ahead and get the proper kind of capital to start the business and be more successful with it than bootstrapping the business.
So where I was going with the grant question was we don't have a community development credit union here. Usually SBA, in order to facilitate the process for microloan businesses,
Right.
Would provide grant funding to credit unions or community development credit unions, small financial institutions that have those as primary lenders. Is there anything going on in this area that's specific for microbusiness aside from Seeds Revolving Loan Fund?
Seeds Revolving Loan Fund and also the support center in Raleigh, the two we have that are doing that kind of work. Okay? They both took out $1 million loans to facilitate that requirement, and I think Seed is getting ready to do another piece of it, which we'll announce here in the next few weeks. And I don't want to steal their thunder, but they're doing a second piece of that as well. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
God
very
bless
much.
you. God bless you.